Hi, Michael. It's really lovely to see you. Thanks for joining me today for a chat. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad, Jenny. How are you?
Yeah, really well, really well.
Good to
Yeah,
see you as well.
keeping good. Just for anyone who doesn't know you, it'd be great just to hear a little bit about you, maybe about your career, about things that are of interest to you. Maybe you've got some crazy hobbies I don't know about.
Well, I'm Michael Brown. I was born in Manchester in Moss Side in the 70s, and so grew up in quite a challenging area. People it's well pretty well documented that Manchester is known for its like gun violence and gang violence, and especially around Moss Side. But it's something which I didn't really kind of get involved with, but was impacted by, and so I decided to kind of like pursue my kind of like football career, but which didn't quite work out. But then go into education, and then I moved to London in 1993. I started studying at university, and then just found my way into employment where I currently work for Post Office at the moment as a contracts and sourcing manager in their commercial function, so overseeing their contracts across that area. But then I'm also involved in the Complexions Network, which is a race and diversity network at Post Office, and that's really to kind of like champion representation at all levels in that organisation. Because when we think about it, Post Office serves the most diverse communities across probably the country, and yet it wasn't reflected in their leadership. And so this is why I joined that network to help try and progress and amplify those issues, and the need to start looking at how we can create career pathways for people from ethnic diverse backgrounds to kind of get into seeing leadership roles. In terms of my background, I'm married. I've got like two daughters, two beautiful daughters who are at university and college at the moment. I love playing football, I love sports, but then I just love like kind of like just being involved in the greater good, just making sure that everyone can realize their full potential, can have access to opportunities, and just to have that freedom and liberty, just to kind of get on in life, without any kind of barriers or things in place.
Love that, love that. I think I'll introduce myself as well. So just so we're on the same level playing field. Yeah, I'm Jenny Garrett. I'm an executive coach, a leadership trainer, and do a lot of work in the space of equality, diversity, and inclusion. I've lived in England all of my life, but my heritage is from St. Lucia and Jamaica. Started off from very humble beginnings in a council estate in northwest London. Now live in kind of leafy Hertfordshire. Um, I started off work, I worked in marketing and I worked in a variety of organizations, but the last role I had was at a business school. And it was there that I found out about coaching. I found about developing leaders, became very passionate about it, did some qualifications and ended up taking the leap to start my own business. That is 18 years now. Most of the work that we do is about really helping those from underrepresented groups to break through the glass ceiling and increasing the representation of diverse talent at senior levels, like you've been talking about, but not just working with the diverse talent, also working with managers and senior leaders to create environments where everyone can thrive. I also have a social enterprise called Rocking Your Teens that aims to inspire and increase the aspirations of 13 to 15-year-olds. I'm really proud of that organization that I lead with two other colleagues. And I have something called the Diverse Executive Coach Directory. And that directory is really helping organizations to diversify their pool of coaches because often there isn't too much diversity within it. Hobbies wise, do I have any? I like to make things. Actually, look, this little pot. I use this thing called kintsugi, where you break a pot and you put it together with gold paint. And the idea is that the cracks are as beautiful. It's more beautiful now it's cracked and repaired than it was in the first place. So I love making things. I'm not good at making things, but I really enjoy doing that. And yeah, I'm married, 25 years next year, touch wood. And I have a daughter who's just completed uni and started in the world of work. So that's a bit about me. So I'm interested in your passions. I think there's a lot of similarity and synergy between us. We want to make the world a better place. We want it to be a good place for everyone. I'm curious as to um, maybe where that passion came from and what makes you a person who hasn't just sat back? Because lots of people talk about stuff and don't do much. And
Yeah.
there are some people who actually take action. And I'm hearing your kind of action orientation, that you want to do something and you're willing to put yourself out there. And I'm curious, yeah, what is the thing that helps you be able to do that?
I think it's I think it's growing up in the kind of environment you kind of did, and what you were exposed to, because like I said, I grew up in like inner city Manchester, where there was a lot of challenges, and not only like from your own like kind of neighborhood and aspects there, but also like from like the the police and so forth, who at that time were my biggest abusers, even was at a young age, because so you kind of realize then that the world wasn't fair. And even like
Mm,
people's perceptions and media perceptions. Even when I played football in Manchester, I played in I played in what we call Stockport Metro League, where I was the only black player in that league, and so I suffered quite a lot of racism there. But yet I still went back. It's that kind of something that's told me that why should I stop playing a game I love? Just because of the back of discrimination or other people's bigotry. And I just felt, well, I don't know what it is. It's that kind of level of resilience, and you kind of encounter that throughout your life everywhere. Even when I first came to London, I had kind of aspects of like racism and discrimination as well. But and then you notice that in the workplace, when you get into those kind of settings, you start to look upwards, and we know as you start to think about your own career aspirations, and you realise that there's people making decisions who don't look like you. You don't see anyone who looks like you operating at those levels, and you start to think to yourself, well, why is that? And so that's why I started to get more inquisitive. But I've always been a person who believes in fairness, who believes in appropriate challenge, and plus you've got to
mm,
bring people along with you. You can't just be bulldozing and shouting the odds and screaming from the rooftops. You have to do it with a level of firmness, diplomacy, but bring people along with you, because by doing this together, then that's how we start to make those incremental changes. And so that's why I joined the network at our respective business, and also started to think about challenging upwards and where you say about throwing your head above the parapet to a certain degree. Other colleagues will talk in like echo chambers, and some people
mm,
don't have the confidence to really lead and
mm,
actually say these things to perfectly senior people. So I think I had that trepidation at first, but the bravery to
mm,
start asking that question as to why is this?
mm,
Why haven't we got that? And I thought, well, sometimes you have to speak to the audience. You have to address the audience in their language. And so I
mm,
started to get the data together and put a business case along with one of my other colleagues, and then we went to the board and actually said, look, this is what the current case is. This is the rationale. Here's the business case, and it had definitely strength of message in terms of what our recommendations were, which was funding, which was an external lens on D&I, which was to capture more data, start putting a tactical roadmap together, and then it kind of grew from there. So I've always not been afraid to challenge upwards, because if it's
mm.
the right thing to do, then it's the right thing to do.
I love that. And I love that your passion really comes through. There's something for me in what you said, which is quite important, because there are a lot of stereotypes. As a black man, you could be seen as angry, aggressive in the way that you come across, which would then lead to defensiveness. And I guess what I'm hearing is you thought, what's the system that I'm in? How do I navigate this system? Yeah, I could beat my hands on the table and talk about unfairness, but actually I've got to work out how to influence people, how to speak the language that's going to and understand what matters to people in order to make a change. And that's not an easy thing to do, and I think it can be quite frustrating as well when you're looking at the pace of change. You talked about not feeling safe with police. I would say that that is still the same in many areas for many communities, that we don't feel that the people who are there to protect and serve are protecting and serving us. So when we're thinking, gosh, 20, 30, how many years ago this was happening and it's still happening now, there can be a frustration, I think, that comes out from us because it's like, why are things not changing? And to have that level of restraint to say, yeah, if I just shout from the rooftops, not going to make a difference. I've got to get a business case, get the data together, think about a roadmap for change. requires some personal qualities. And I'd like to know more about what you feel the personal qualities that you've either have naturally or have had to develop in order to sort of move the dial forward in the way that you've been working to.
I think I've always been organized, but then I think in terms of that learning journey, it was active listening. So
Mm-hmm.
really onboarding and listen to the views of other colleagues or other people who are like-minded, people who weren't like-minded, so people who maybe opposed, this level of change, what I'm seeking. But at first as well, it's almost really understanding who you are, and I had to go through that evolvement of, as you said, I mean, sometimes a bit of anger, a bit of resentment,
Mm-hmm.
but then also understanding that this is a card I've been dealt with. Despite being married, despite owning my own home, I'm doing quite well for myself. The minute I walk out that door, I can be reminded of my place in society.
Mm-hmm.
Very instantly. I can be stopped by the police. Someone could stereotype me after walking a shop and being followed because they think I'm going to pick up something, or someone may ask me, "Am I selling anything?" Which you get all the time, you see. And then even at work as well, sometimes you get people who are, as you said, think the angry black man, maybe defensive, or maybe that bit of banter, like, oh, whose butchered your hair, and you have to say, look,
Mm-hmm.
listen, I'm a black man, But then
Mm-hmm.
it's almost having to have the confidence to say, I'm not going to put on the imposter syndrome. I talked about navigating the landscape, but it's navigating it being my authentic
Mm-hmm.
self. So telling people
Mm-hmm.
this is my situation,
Mm-hmm.
sharing, having the confidence to share your story, and this is why sometimes you might have to relive your trauma, but then you have to be
Mm-hmm.
careful, because I think, well, how many times do you have to say it before people have to get it?
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like, I think what I've putting all those things together, it's like that active listening, that looking at your resilience, looking at the point where you know that is it something you just have to do, and it's something what it's just that inner
Mm-hmm.
real passion, belief, saying, look, we walk on the shoulder of giants. When we think about the Windrush generation and think about all those who have gone before, the inspirations are still around us in terms of our grandparents, your mum, your uncles, those inspirational people, and especially like people like yourselves in this DNI community. When you hear so many people passionate, making those kind of changes, you learn, you're kind of on board, and then you apply you look at your own respective organizations and think, right, okay, I can take some of those learnings or bring that to the table and try and influence our business to walk that way. So I think it has been an involvement of, like I said before, putting all those things in the realm and then starting to apply them. And so, yeah, I think it served me well, because it's raised my profile. It's raised the profile of people in the network, and it's allowed me to meet more influential, more collaborative people who are like-minded and wanting the same outcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think there's a lot in what you said, but as I was listening, I was thinking, being a senior person, being a black man, there's quite a lot of responsibility that can come with that. And whether that's people looking up and saying, help me up too, whether that's people looking at you and perhaps you feeling, are they waiting for me to make a mistake so it can confirm, their stereotypes, and that sense of responsibility that I think we can have, which is actually I'm carrying my whole race, ethnicity, here. The moment I make a mistake, that might close everything down for everyone else, and that requires, I think, quite a lot of resilience. And I'm curious about that sense of, how do you keep resilience? I wrote something about resilience, particularly for diversity, the people in diversity recently, and I mentioned the term diversilience, this idea of being resilient, but in this space, which I think is a bit different. And I just wondered, maybe, do you have any practices for your resilience, that help you? Or, yeah, what does diversilience look like for you?
I think what it looks like for me is that and this is where again, it's like that reading, that kind of learning journey, listen and looking at all like LinkedIn updates of people in this kind of like space, who are going through similar challenges. And this is across not just like people from ethnic diverse backgrounds, this is across the whole
Mm,
spectrum of ED&I, because we have that saying in the Caribbean, he or she feels it knows it,
mm,
and
mm,
so for me, sometimes it's that reflection piece, trying to like sit still a little bit, and because it is tiring. Sometimes it is a lonely journey as well. And plus, I still got aspirations about aspiring and getting up that career ladder. But you know that the further you go, the more lonely it's probably going to get, because there's no other people operating that level. And you are right when you do know that certain. And I've got a lot of humility and kindness in me, but sometimes I don't realize how people are viewing me. It's only when they start to tell me, and you start to realize, okay, yeah, you are well respected, or you have got a certain profile, and what you're doing naturally is serving you well. But it's about, well, I still have to come home and reflect. I've still got to take time out and breathe, because you do get tired, but that's where you lean on your family. That's where you lean on your friends. You lean on the Lord, in terms of my religious kind of beliefs. And then you kind of like reset yourselves and then go again, because sometimes you can be blinded, or just kind of just go into things and you're not really seeing what you're trying to achieve. You have to sit back, reflect, look at how we're progressing, look at different ways to move that dial and think, well, how can I do that, or who can help me do that? Because this is not something which can be achieved by one person. This is something which can only be achieved by all of us, having that kind of collective mindset. But it's about how we go about influencing people, how we go about making people move with us to say, this is where the end state, what we've got to get to, where all will benefit. So I think it's just that's where the resilience comes in, because it's not about, sometimes think about, it's not about me, it's about who's coming behind me now. I look at my daughters, I look at those people who are doing great things. I'm thinking, well, if I can move that down a little bit, I've done my job.
Love that, love that. And I like the thought about community, because there are a lot of people working in isolation, and not collaborating enough. And I think that, yeah, together we are stronger. And instead of competing, I think if we collaborated more, there's so much more we could achieve. And that idea of how can we do this collectively is key. I know that you are keen to give back, to support, to contribute, to use your expertise. And I wonder how you see that happening. Do you see yourself, would you love to speak in more spaces? Would you love to mentor more people? Would you like to create something? What's in your mind? This doesn't have to be anything concrete, but just ideas.
I think what I've realised, because I'll share a bit about myself, something more deeply personal. I used to have a stammer when I was younger, and so I would really shy away from the spotlight. Anyone wanted to read in class, whether it's be educational settings, I would really kind of have trepidation, like, don't pick me to read this chapter. When we come to like university, we've got to stand in front of the lectern and deliver your presentation. I'm thinking, right, calm down, breathe. But then what happened was the death of my cousin in Manchester, who tragically got murdered, and so that was the point where I knew I wanted to say something, because it was right. It was just the right time. And then that was the first time I addressed a major audience of people. And then from then on, I've started to build that, and I realized if it's something what I'm really passionate about, something which is right, then I'm going to say it. But what's happened is that people are saying, what, my passion comes across. You've got this ability to deliver diplomacy. You strengthen message, and people really are engaged. So I think I probably want to continue, to build on that. To speak and to speak on forums like this, or in the wider kind of like D&I community. But also as well, I do know that I've got a lot to give back as well in terms of my upbringing. So this is where I look backwards to like younger people, and I have this thing. I just do it naturally. Like in our business, we've got a lot of apprentices who have joined from like youth schemes and so forth. Also like those apprentices who come into the workplace for the first time. I always just tend to gravitate to them, reach out to them, tell them, this is a culture, be your authentic self. There's all these other networks to come and join. So really having that kind of inclusive mindset about making sure that they've got the support to start to look at their careers, but sometimes at a detriment of my own, because I give a lot, but then it's almost like trying to say to myself, well, I need that support as well to kind of get to where I need to as well. So I need to lean on people and give myself the time to do that. And this is where speaking to people like yourselves and the Whittle community who when I did the Ethnic Future Leader program, there were so many great speakers and round tables who gave us that advice about journaling and give us that time and just getting that thing to apply it. But I'd probably just like to speak more and maybe mentor more. I've just started that mentoring journey with a young colleague who's reached out to me, and so and I can see straight away that element of trust is so important, because people want to have that rapport before they start to open up, and then that's when you can start to see. And sometimes I said about this active listening, because sometimes it's not about giving them advice, they just want to sound off or share what they want to do, and then you'll start to see where you can help them.
Fantastic, thank you. So there's probably going to be a TED talk, I'm hearing. Yeah, I can
Probably
see
at some
that.
point, if
Yeah,
I
I
can,
can
yeah.
see that. But actually just sharing your experience in many spaces would be great with people who are trying to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in their organizations, or audiences who might not have thought about it before, or audience who may not have thought that actually they might have one view of what a leader looks like, or and actually you can break that stereotype. So there are many spaces where I can see you'd be a fantastic speaker. And then this idea of mentoring others, yeah, thinking about how you can share your wisdom. And you mentioned imposter syndrome, just getting over imposter syndrome earlier. And I think one of the best ways to get over your own imposter syndrome is to mentor other people, because you just see yourself through other people's eyes. You see that they appreciate your wisdom and your experience, and it really helps your own confidence as well as helping them. So I think mentoring other people is brilliant, and great that you've got lots of apprentices who can benefit from you, but you're going to have to clone yourself, aren't you? Yeah, you're going to have to
You know
find a
what?
way.
But then I know you talk about cloning yourself, but I think what it is just that you make yourself available when they need to. So just someone saying, look,
Yes,
we don't have to do this 24/7, but I'm accessible
yes.
should you need it. And being in the kind of like chair role of the network, you get a lot of people coming to you in confidence anyway. So I'm a stickler for Chatham House rules, confidence,
Yes.
those confidential spaces where people can disclose their journey. And this has been from senior colleagues, to colleagues who are operating at a lower level. But it doesn't matter, because people buy from people,
Yes.
and why should they buy from you? And so this is why I always say to my girls, people never get how you made them feel, so make them feel good, because they'll always remember
Yes.
you, good or bad. So
Mm,
I must be doing something right, because people feel good around me, to trust me, to kind of walk with me as well. But then
definitely.
I need to get that from you as well. So you mentioned like mentoring, and part of that Whittle program, I did reverse mention to like global directors and so forth as part of that program. And so um, I was a mentor and they were the mentee. So it's almost like giving them that outlook as to how inclusive they are, how they're engaging their teams, how they can get more immersed, and how they can start to think differently when it comes to maybe recruitment, hiring, culture, all that kind of stuff. And that's just by sharing my background, my journey, what I've exposed to, what I'm currently facing into, and how people from all different backgrounds can utilize their privilege to kind of make sure that we all can enjoy the privilege, which will give us to that pursuit of happiness, shall we say. It doesn't need to be career, it could be something else, but it's just about just removing those barriers to make sure that we can help others.
Yeah, fantastic. I really love that. I really, really love it. So I think we're probably coming to the end of our time. We could talk all day. I think there's so much synergy between us. And yeah, I look forward to following your journey and finding ways that we can collaborate in future. But how can people get in touch with you? That would be really good to know. Would it be going to LinkedIn? Would that be the best place?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, go into LinkedIn. I mean, obviously, I'm part of the Whittle community, so I'm a part of their race and ethnicity committee as well. So people can contact me through my work settings as well. But LinkedIn is probably the best place to get hold of me. I'd be interested to, and I'm really eager to kind of share, collaborate more, even with yourselves. I mean, thank you for this opportunity, Jenny, as well, because again, it's because you're on this journey that that I get exposure to people like yourselves and other influential people as well, and one can only be inspired because we all rowing in the same direction, and so it just makes you feel part of something that we are working towards. There are people out here who want to see that true sense of community, come to pass, shall we say.
Thank
Be
you.
realised.
I think we probably just need to explain what Whittle is because there'll be
Oh,
people
sorry.
watching who don't know Whittle, and that's how we met, because I delivered a session on the Whittle program. But do you want to explain what it is?
Yeah, that's it's diversity in retail and the hospitality industry as well. It's that collaborative community of businesses, and Whittle is that kind of an organisation who is bringing that community together and putting various offerings, whether it's women in leadership courses, ethnic diversity programs. So you've seen ethnic future leader program, and then they've got senior leader programs as well. But what they're doing constantly is having these collaborative communities where we're looking at CEOs, we're looking at progression pathways, how everyone can play their part, in actually moving this dial forward. And I think I'm so glad to be exposed in this and immersed in this, but there are other things happening outside of that of that program, which is just as impactful when I look at social mobility, look at people from a local level, there's like groups like Mentivity and so forth who are doing absolutely fantastic stuff. And this is where you want to see where you can lend your hand, but you can't spread yourself too thin.
That's it, exactly.
But what we advocate is that everyone can play their part at whatever level it is.
Beautiful. I think that's a perfect mic drop moment to end our conversation on. Thank you so much. It's been really wonderful to speak with you.
You too, Jenny. Take care. Thank you.